Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to my video. So this video is about whether CVT transmissions are, I would say, whether they're like better than normal manual or automatic transmissions that are non-CVT. So this is gonna be my own personal experience. Prior to driving this car that I have, which is a 2008 Nissan Altima, all my other cars were traditional non-CVT regular automatic transmissions. Now I'm gonna go through a couple of I would say a couple of features of these transmissions that I like and don't like as far as the CVT is concerned compared to normal non-CVT transmissions. Okay, as far as reliability is concerned, I would say that a lot of this has to do with maintenance on the CVT transmissions. The cars that I had with non-CVT transmissions, I didn't really need to change the transmission fluid, and I can't recall one time, except for when I had issues with the transmissions with a car that I had that was a non-CVT transmission car, where I had to go and get the transmission, some work done on the transmission, where they did a flush and stuff like that. But normally, it's not recommended, particularly if your normal non-CVT transmission car has over 100,000 miles. Normally not recommended that you change the transmission fluid. And I've never done it with a regular when I was driving non-CVT transmission cars. However, with CVT transmission cars, that's a must. Every 40,000 miles, 40 to 60,000 miles, it's in the manual, 40 to 60,000 miles, you would need to change the CVT transmission fluid. It will help to keep that transmission running as, running in top condition, and it will keep it from breaking down and break. So as far as maintenance is concerned, it's like you have to change the transmission fluid every 40,000 miles, and you can change it as many times as you want. Actually, it actually helps your transmission quite a bit, your CVT transmission quite a bit, which is something you don't have to do with regular, normal, non-CVT traditional transmissions. Now, as far as the whine and my experiences with the CVT noises, the whine, the CVT transmission and going to limp mode and stuff like that. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking of those things as negative things, but from my personal experience, let me give you some background as far as my personal experiences with this car. So when I bought this car at 150,000 miles, I knew nothing about CVT transmissions. I did not change the fluid. When I bought it, the fluid was green, it was clear, it wasn't dark, there was no issues with it. So I drove, as I recall, there wasn't a lot of noise. I don't think there was a lot of noise. None that was noticeable to me when I first bought it. But as I kept on driving it, the CVT whine I kept on hearing the whine. So it became one of those things where, where I did not know a single thing about CVT transmissions. I didn't know that there was a whine that existed. So it was hard for me to figure out what that issue was, whether it was coming from my transmission, or the bearings on my car. I originally thought it was the bearing on my car that was causing it. Didn't think it was the transmission that was the issue. But eventually it broke down. But it didn't break down immediately. It broke down after 50,000 miles. So I bought my car at 150,000. I drove my car with the CVT whine hollering up to 200,000 miles. So as far as reliability is concerned, you know, you might think of that as a negative, but you know, if you guys have any experiences with CVT transmission, if you guys start hearing a whine or the car going to limp mode, you know, you should definitely change the fluid. All right, it's more like a physical warning from the car telling you that something needs to be changed before, you know, it breaks down on you. So you might look at those things as negative, but if you knew anything about the maintenance of a CVT transmission, those aren't actually negative things. And I'm saying that because I currently have over 100,000 miles on my second CVT transmission, because I had to get it replaced because it broke down. But I have over 100,000 miles on it, and knowing what I know about, you know, changing the fluid and stuff like that, every time I hear the CVT whine and when my car goes into limp mode, and it's gone into limp mode about 14, 15, 16 times, I would change the CVT transmission fluid, and you know, I have had no issues with it. I've driven 100,000 miles with, you know, with it whining every once in a while, and it going to limp mode, you know, particularly during the heat of the summer. But there has been no damage to my CVT transmissions, because if, like I said, the CVT whine, the CVT limp mode is more of a check, you know, more like a physical check your transmission light. You know how you know, check engine lights, you know, service engine soon lights actually give you a warning that there's an issue and you need to get it fixed. Well, you know, as far as CVTs are concerned, from my personal perspective, the warning is the CVT noise or whine. The warning is, you know, your car going to limp mode, you know, or fail-safe mode. I mean, that's what it is. So as long as you understand that from that perspective, you know, and you know, you get, you know, your fluid change, your CVT transmission fluid change, which is essentially what it's telling you to do, because, you know, after a certain while, you see, you know, after a certain amount of driving, your CVT transmission fluid will, you know, break down, oxidize, stuff like that, oxidize. You know, it'll heat up and bubble up and stuff like that if, you know, if you don't change it up, you know. So once you understand that it's more of a warning than it is a reflection of issues with the engine, you realize that a CVT transmission is pretty reliable, because with normal conventional transmissions that are non-CVT, what happens is, if your car, it gives you no warning as far as issues with your transmissions at all. So if your car starts slipping, if your transmission starts slipping with a non-CVT transmission, what happens is, normally that's a really bad sign of issues with the CVT transmissions, and a lot of times that's just a sign of something that has broken down. Broken down with the traditional non-CVT transmissions, and that's just a big issue. So there's no warning as far as non-CVT traditional transmissions are concerned. But as far as CVT transmissions are concerned, it does give you a warning of when you need to change the fluid, and as long as you do that, from my perspective, as long as you do that, you know, your CVT transmissions should be fine. I mean, you're supposed to change that fluid with your CVT transmission fluid every 40,000 miles to 60,000 miles. So it shouldn't be an issue as far as that's concerned. And a lot of people actually do it every 30,000 miles. It's a good upkeep on your transmission. You're supposed to do it. As long as you get that done, you know, your CVT should be working top notch. All right. As far as speed is concerned, All right, I know that a lot of people have complained about, you know, CVT transmissions when they shift. It takes a, you know, they can feel that it takes like about a, you know, a little bit longer. It's a minute amount of time, but a little bit longer for, you know, you're not feeling it when it shifts and stuff like that. It bothers some people. My experiences with that is when I do like a quick stop at a stoplight or whatever. If it's like a hard stop, you know, for it to re-engage again, for me to put my foot on the accelerator and have it re-engage again, it takes maybe like a second. It feels kind of weird, but I'm not a speed racer. I don't take my car, you know, to on the street and try to race people. I don't do that kind of stuff. So as far as it being fast or not, it's fast enough for me. I don't really have issues with the little, you know, with the little momentary, minute amount of time that it, you know, that it takes to switch into gear that some people have, and it doesn't really affect me when you know, it's shifting to gear and you're not feeling it. I mean, that bothers some people. It really doesn't bother me. I have had absolutely no issues with it. The bigger issues that I've had with transmissions are just issues with transmissions and stuff like that. But knowing what I know about CVT transmissions, you know, the positives pretty much outweigh the negatives. I'm sure you guys are watching this video because you guys want more information on CVT transmissions. You guys have any questions, you know, feel free to you know, to put your questions in the comment section and stuff like that. My personal thought on CVT is I hated CVT transmissions, transmission cars when I first got this car because of, you know, the whining noise and me having to swap out the transmission after it broke down. But after knowing what I know about CVT transmissions, it's not a horrible thing. You know, it's not even a bad thing because, you know, it does give you warnings before it actually breaks down. So as long as you get that stuff fixed, you have no issues with it. And on top of that, I've heard the other issues is it's a lot more efficient, so it saves on gas. I don't know. You know, I don't know if that's the truth or not because, you know, I drive a 2008 Altima. You know, it saves on gas pretty good. I don't know if that's the transmission is part of the reason why it helps. But I've noticed also that one of the reasons why people like CVT transmissions, or one of the positive things about it, is that, you know, it's cheaper to manufacture. It's cheaper to manufacture, and I've actually seen prices of cars. You know, the 2008 Altimas you can get these days, you know, you for like $3,000. I mean, so it's kind of lowered the cost of cars, so that's a positive thing. But overall, generally speaking, I'm gonna repeat myself again, but if you know how to maintain a CVT transmission car, you know, it should be a really good, you know, efficient transmission. It works the way it's supposed to work. Now, if I was drag racing, or if I was somebody who's, you know, who races, which I'm not, all right, who races people on the street, probably wouldn't buy a car that has a CVT transmission because of, you know, because of the little things that's particular to CVT transmissions. You're not feeling, you know, when it switches gears. You know, sometimes, you know, if you come to a really fast, hard stop, what happens is you're gonna, you know, it'll take like a second for it to, you know, shift back into reset itself into gear and stuff like that. But for most people, it's not an issue. Now, I've seen people complain about CVT transmissions, but on the other side, I've also seen a lot of good things that people have said about CVT transmissions. I've, you know, read, you know, postings and stuff like that where people are saying that, you know, they've driven their car 100,000 miles, changed the transmission fluid, had absolutely no issues with, you know, their CVT transmissions and such. So, you know, that's my personal thought on it. You know, as far as, you know, whether I would pick a CVT transmission car versus a non-CVT transmission car, if you guys are looking into buying a new car these days, chances are it does have a CVT transmission. If you guys want to, you know, buy a non-CVT transmission car, you guys probably would have to look at a lot of older cars. So it's not like it's a choice these days, and this is a lot of these car manufacturers, most of the lineups are CVT transmission cars. So it's just a way, it's just the wave of the future. You know, it's just what it is. But the main thing about these CVT transmission is you guys really need to understand, you know, understand why it does what it does. Limp mode, safe mode, CVT whine, that's pretty much, as far as I'm concerned, that's pretty much just all part of the nature of the CVT transmission. It's just, you know, look at it as more of a warning that you need to change your fluid instead of looking at it as there's a CVT transmission issue. I mean, from my personal perspective, it's not actually a CVT transmission issue as much as it's more like a physical warning that your car, that the fluid needs to be changed. All right, guys, like I said, if you guys have any comments, questions, or whatever, feel free to drop those in the comment section. And if this has helped you guys out in any way, please give me a thumbs up and please subscribe. All right, guys. All right, take care.